Hi, I'm B.
I'm R.
We're going to talk to you today about what it's like to go through security after an international flight with this whole travel ban, coronavirus, and what steps you can expect. We recently returned from a very short trip to Austria. We have already done 2 videos on what it was like to wake up in Europe after the travel ban and what steps we took to come home early. So you can check out those videos. This video specifically is going to talk about the steps we took getting back into the country after the ban and what it's like dealing with the coronavirus while you're traveling.
On the morning that we woke up in Vienna, Austria, scheduled to fly home to Idaho, we learned that our flight was not going to happen as planned. And that is because overnight, the United States had changed their policy as to which airports were receiving visitors from zones that could possibly be infected by the coronavirus.
Which is where we were coming from.
So instead of flying from Frankfurt, Germany to Denver, Colorado, we were going from Frankfurt, Germany to San Francisco, California.
Initially, we were not excited to be flying all the way from Frankfurt to San Francisco and then back to Idaho. It seemed like a lot of extra hours on a plane. Turned out that was actually a really good thing for us.
So we arrived at the Vienna airport, and again, it was shockingly quiet. There were not lines. It was really calm. We just went up right to the counter and they changed our tickets for us. No problem. Checked our bags, and we went on down to security. The airport on the backside was really quiet also. Quickly through security, got to our gate, and we boarded a plane that was about, I don't know, 20% full. There was not very many people on this particular flight from Vienna to Frankfurt.
Boarding our flight to the US in Frankfurt was very easy as well. We just had to do a couple little extra document checks, but they didn't take any time. There was no lines. Mm-hmm. We boarded a very empty, very large United plane. I think we decided in the economy where we were sitting, it was probably about a third full, maybe. Every seat did have a person, but almost everyone had a seat entirely to themselves.
A row entirely to themselves.
A row. Yes, sorry, a row entirely to themselves. It was up in first class, business class. That was a ghost town, completely empty up there. So the flight was probably about 25% full. Lots of room to move around, which made it a pretty pleasant flight, actually.
Probably my best transatlantic crossing yet.
Yeah. So even though it was longer than we were planning on, it wasn't too bad.
So we arrived at the San Francisco airport and got funneled right to the normal security where you do your border patrol customs check. And if you guys have ever done that, you know that there are a few different lines, one for non-residents, one for residents, and then one for residents who have the global entry access, which B and I both do. So we went to that line. Our poor friend got in the giant line for the regular access. We figured we would be done a lot earlier than her, and I guess we were, but none of us expected for it to take as long as it did.
The first sign that something was maybe a little off is when we got done at the kiosk for global entry, and instead of having a nice little piece of paper that lets you go right through, there was a big X on it. So we got in the line with the other people who had X's, and it wasn't that long of a line.
No, there's 20, 30 people total in that line. What we realized, though, is that the line was not moving.
Very, very slow. We couldn't really figure out what the deal was. Part of it was that there was only one agent helping our line, but very slow. Eventually we did move forward, get through. That process when we got up to the agent didn't take very long.
I would say it was about 40 minutes of standing in the line to get through 20, 30 people. So it was slow. We did figure out the problem though. The San Francisco airport where you go through customs is a big warehouse room. When you get up to your customs agent, he was individually walking the person from one corner of the room all the way to the back corner, and then he would walk back, and then he'd take the next person in line. Next person in line, they'd go through, walk all the way back to the back corner, and then he'd come back.
It wasn't very efficient. I think he figured this out after a while. We also overheard him tell someone that he'd been on overtime for several hours at that point. So these guys were working really hard. I do feel bad. They were not equipped to deal with the amount of people who were coming in to just these few airports. So he did, at that point, started taking a group of us. We moved on down to the other corner. That other corner was a CDC set up
So after you make it to the CDC line, the CDC agent, representative person, walks your health screening paper along with your passport up to another border control. So everybody's waiting in the third little area at this point. I came on up and was talking to Bea, and she asked me what my temperature was, and I was like, they didn't even take my temperature. And we realized this is probably going to be a problem, so I marched on back to the CDC booth and said, does somebody want to take my temperature? Which they did, and I was good.
Yeah. We passed. We were very, very nervous, thought we were overheating at that point, but we were good. We passed. From there, we just exited. That was pretty easy. After they call your name, they hand you your passport, and you're free, finally.
Mm-hmm. So all that said and done, from the time that we were at the Global Entry kiosk to the time we exited to baggage claim was about an hour and a half.
Yeah. So not terrible, but not the most delightful experience, especially given how slow it was moving. It's one thing when you spend that much time, but you're actually moving and you can see the progress. It's very difficult when you can't see very much progress.
Mm-hmm. So at this point, we had to wait for our poor friend who was stuck in the regular line. And after conferring with her, once she finally made it out of the room, we learned that the experience was same, just hers was a lot slower. So when it all was said and done for her, I think she ended up taking about 3.5 hours to get through.
Yeah. So I had gone ahead to see about our connecting flight. I'd picked up my bag, gone back through security, and actually made it to the gate in time to make our flight to Boise. But the rest of the group was not able to get through customs in time. Thankfully for us, there was a later flight that we were able to make. Mm-hmm. But all in all, if you're going through security at this time, you're going to need a very, very long layover from your international flight to your next domestic flight for sure. This morning, we read some news articles about other airports and other people's experience with going through security and the CDC. And it sounds like some of the airports were a lot worse off, 5 to 7 hour waits. Sounds like Chicago was just a disaster. So even though we were in the air longer on our flight to San Francisco, the fact that it was on the west coast of the US, I think really helped us out, and we were able to get through much, much quicker and actually get home the day that we were flying home instead of getting stuck somewhere. So we're very grateful for that.
So that was our fun experience of making it from Europe back home to the US during a major pandemic of coronavirus.
And travel ban.
If you have any questions or want to know more, go ahead and message us.
Please like, please subscribe, and hopefully we'll see you out there traveling soon.